Untitled podcast.
Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
But we're here to challenge you to and guide you to do more and be more against your weaknesses. And today our guest is my friend, Peter Dobrich. Pete has one of the most commanding presences I've ever known. He's the owner of Private Financial Group and former owner of the Windsor Spitfires, right? Memorial Cup champs. Yep. One time, two times? Two-time champ. Yeah. He's Serbian heritage, right? So I don't really often describe people that, but I know that's something you're super proud of and that you're always talking about. And proud husband and father, wife Laura, and his kids, who I know all three of them, was Alex, Daniela, and Stefan. Yeah. So that's kind of how we met, right? Years ago. Yeah. You pulled into my driveway. Tomorrow's the 6-year anniversary of this gym. So you pulled into my tiny little driveway, all these guys with their kids to drop them off for hockey training. I was thinking to myself, what would make anybody leave their kid just right here in this subdivision and let me put them through hell and come back and get them and then give them shit for not working hard enough?
That's right.
Yeah. Anyways, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so in this episode, we want to talk about anything from masculinity. I know that's a hot topic for you and I all the time. Fatherhood, building a championship or building a champion, and then anywhere from business to finances. See wherever the hell it goes. Our conversation's always going a great place.
Sure.
So let's roll, man. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go right away. So top stressors in life. I always like to talk about something like this right away, and you've been kind of like a shield for me, or since I retired from the police department. You were the first guy I went to before I was retired, and you're the first person who said yeah, man, you'll be fine. And I feel in a world like today, everybody's just kind of wishy-washy on their answers. You planted your flag and said, you make it to retirement, I got it from there. That was our game plan, and I thank you for that. So let's talk about Private Financial and what you guys do there.
Well, you're welcome, and I think when we think about the bigger issue is
modesty. You're welcome for pushing me into into business.
I think our biggest approach when we look at any scenario is always the strategy side, right? And I would think if I want to be recognized as anything, and when we address a situation, is obviously understanding the circumstances, having data behind it, but at the end of the day, I think you guys have alluded to the past too, is indecision is the worst type of decision, right? And we see it frequently. But no, when we sit down with our clients, at the end of the day, we get them focusing on what the goals are, but most importantly, we say, hey, it's time to do this. Yeah, you can do this. And they have the framework around, feeling comfortable. And if we want to make it someone driving a ship, there's rough waters that'll come. We know it. There's lots of wind. There's less wind. But do I have trust in the guy at the wheel or the girl at the wheel, right? But do I have trust in the person at the wheel? And that's really what we want people to feel after they're done a meeting or dealing with us, right? So, that's really important, is the strategy around what you're trying to do, right? Markets go up, markets go down. All kinds of things can happen, but that's noise, right? So if you think of those, I guess you can think of those headphones, right? Those noise canceling headphones. That's what we are to our clients once we get them on a path.
So how does that work with a financial advisor? Do you just go in, have your initial meeting, hand over money, and walk away for a number of years, or do you have clients who are very in the mix, in the know, constantly checking in on what's going on?
It depends. We have a proprietary process that we follow always, right? And there's a really important first fit meeting, and that's really gets them to understand how we approach the business and our process, but equally important, us to understand them, right? Because we don't let everyone on the ark. We're not everything to everyone, but we're everything to a few. And we have some parameters and things that we look for an ideal client. But there's a process in the beginning. We definitely follow the process. We have people who want to be involved, and we have people who are saying, hey, we know what we know. This is why you're at the table. We've interviewed 2 or 3 people, and because of your process and your approach, you're the firm we want handling it. And we want to be able to instill the confidence, like when we first met, and said, hey, you got to be confident in your advisor, regardless of the advisor or relationship, that they can deliver on what they're talking about, right? So.
Yeah, that's what I loved. So I think we started coming to you with when Danny was about to retire, because she retired first and you took that over. It was a big deal, and how do you get the money from here to there and from pension to pension and all this stuff. And when we sat down with you, you were the first one who was like I just felt you spoke straightforward.
Yeah.
You like shot from the hip. And I mean, I knew at that point, I don't think we were like your typical client that you had been taking on, and we appreciated that. And then what since it's like, and I've recommended so many people to you, and what I love about that is like, even when I make that recommendation to you, are you okay over there? Or sniper get you? Even when you make that recommendation, or I make a recommendation to you, you actually say like, well, I'll meet with them and we'll see if we're a fit for each other. Like, it's like you're doing things that people talk about on Instagram now that nobody was like saying back then. Is like, like we could just take your money. Yeah. But if it's gonna be a pain in the ass for you, or like a pain in the ass for them, or not trust, like where would you go from there? And I know, like, since my parents have started to talk to you, they like love you. They speak so highly of you, and I think that's why. Right. Is that like straight from the hip and no bullshit type of thing. So you always talk, man, and I love how like some of the things like seem to carry over from topic to topic. Like if we're talking fitness, we're always telling people we're here for the long haul, not for tomorrow. Like we want to build a sustainable success, and that's what you've always talked about when it comes to money and everything else to me. So like big picture over the short term, and I love when you tell that story about like the tulips.
Yeah. Well, it's
you know,
most historic story about greed and emotion are the two biggest emotions when you think about investing, and where this whole long discussion can go to. But it's greed, and greedy times make us do foolish things. Fearful times, people do foolish things as well. And that's what we end up doing for the most part, is managing that part, is emotions of people, because it's don't do that. Like, don't overpay, don't underpay. And if you can think about planting a tree, it's the most basic thing. People are dying to pick fruits from it right away in a year, and it's like, wait a second here, like just leave it alone, let it go, because if you move it once or twice, it's probably not going to make it, right? Mm-hmm. Most people ignore the roots because why? They're under the ground and no one can see it. We want to show off our fruit instead of going, wait a minute, let's fertilize the roots. Let's make sure that they're deep enough, so deep that they can weather all storms. Because sometimes you're going to be holding onto the tree just to make sure it lasts. And those are in the beginning years, right? A lot of times I see in some of your posts, as far as it's not sexy to have the long game. It's not either in investing, because you do it over time. You manage through those processes, and hopefully you have opportunities when the markets do come down, or the circumstances that you're at, where you can add to the portfolio, and that's usually where you're getting the most benefit of long-term success. So our role in that situation is just managing that emotion. The plan is the plan. I'd say it's easy, right? The hard part is executing and staying on a process and not rushing to the end of the race, right? Because it just doesn't work.
Right. It's like that 30-day workout plan, as opposed to sticking to it for a year, right?
Yeah.
Everyone wants that overnight lottery win, and it's the exact same thing.
I think about your guys' marketing, right? When you think about it, it's that 6 week. Just get them in here. You know it doesn't work. Well, I shouldn't say that.
Right.
It works, but you're there to get them, to convert them to that long-term behavioral change, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to do the same thing, right? As far as bringing them in, and that fit meeting, really we ask some questions that bring out what their true view is on money and what's important about money to you, because it's really not about the returns or the ups and downs. It's about what does it do? It's a vehicle, right? And how you're treating it. We always ask, can money make you happy? And everyone says, oh, no. And I'm going, come on, everything you love doing starts at a bank machine at some point, right? It's the vehicle that allows us to have opportunities of healthcare, education, opportunities, etc. So when you change your mindset, true wealth is a mindset, no different than physical health, right? Emotional health. All those things take time, practice, and it's important to have a trusting relationship. We always refer to that board of directors. Build that trusted board of directors around you, and trust them implicitly, and make sure that they're aligned, and then you do what you do best, and let everyone bring their value to the table for you.
Yeah, man. I love that analogy too, with the board of directors, or like any team. Like that's what it's about, right? The managing of emotion. I got to see that firsthand. I remember you calling me during COVID, like, "Hey man, don't open your statements the next couple of months. Shit's gonna get crazy." But then you also said, like, "Hey, remember we spoke about this. We didn't know this was going to." That was exactly what it was. We didn't know this was going to be it, and
Right.
it was going to happen this soon. But we spoke about this, and are you ready?
Yeah.
Like, now's the time to buy. Really, it was what we were going to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a pretty wild time. And then, like, to learn a little bit about the stock market, and like, the actual like buying strategies are sometimes built on emotion. Like, there's all these different waves that you read, right, that are built on the human emotion rather than the numbers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have one side that says, long term, take advantage, leave it alone. It's actually interesting because I'll come back to your question, but it's an important point. Fidelity Mutual Fund is one of the largest mutual fund managers in the world. They did a study on who did the best over returns over time, and there were two people. The people who forgot, or they didn't have their address, forgot that they had an account. Yeah. And people who were deceased, that just, they didn't get the information. So basic as that, they didn't know about it, they left it alone, and they did the best over time because you're not chasing, moving, altering this or that, because, investments like soap, the more you touch it, the smaller it gets. That's bottom line. So leave it alone. So my circle back to you on, there's that strategy of buying quality stuff and leaving it. And there's also strategies that are new, that with all the algorithms and the ETFs and all these models that allow you to be in and out of markets. And that takes a lot more technical experience, but people are doing it, and it's for the right individual. Challenges there is always, when you have a community that follows an industry and can have input, or some big personality or business person can make comments and affect it. Warren Buffett, has done it over the years as well, and people look to certain people for input, and it can affect the stock quickly. So we're just take care of looking back to the process again, staying on your process, focus on what your rate of return that's needed for you to meet your goals. Really, that's what should be most important. The noise will always be there, and there's going to be always new types of industries, and that's what we assess over time, because we need to be part of it, right? There's been some great disruptive industries. There's no question. We've seen it. It's just now making sure that you're going in on the right format, and I think the biggest thing that people ignore is valuation. The most single thing, if anyone can take from here, if any kids are listening, is know the value of everything. Understand the value when it comes to an asset. If you don't understand the value, then there's always going to be loss of capital, and could be a permanent loss of capital. So know the value. The first few things you'll be coming into. You maybe want to buy a car. You want to buy, an income property or something like that. Do your homework. Know the math, so you know where you're at. Most of the people don't understand how to value anything. And that's when they lose money, really. And that's the frustrating part.
So part of that, especially, I know a lot of people, especially my age, are going through this. Would that fall under, like, knowing the value of something? Is like, let's look at the housing market, for example, right? A lot of houses that aren't worth what they're going for right now. Is that something that people could be potentially making mistakes on, is overbidding for a property? Or is that something that will eventually kind of even out? And
so it's hard to say, because there's markets in Canada that have been escalating for many, 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 many years, right? I think this is the first time we talked locally here. We've seen this massive surge of valuation. There's a few reasons. It's lower interest rates. It's easy money, right? Easy access to capital. But I think the most important point that you're getting at is, I need to get somewhere. I need a house, and if it's long term, you're just going to take a much longer term period to get even with your money. But if you got to live somewhere, right? But if you're looking at an income property, that's a little bit different, because now you're measuring a return on investment and what rate of return you're looking, and then you usually start with the valuation. The point I'm getting at is, if you're going in to buy whatever you're buying, do you know the values that have been sold over the last 2 to 3 years and where things are at? That's when I talk about really understanding values. A used car, what's the best price? Where are we at? I'm just thinking those first things that kids get faced with to purchase. But if there's any lessons that's not getting taught in school, we know finance isn't, but understanding the value of everything before you invest. right?
You think at times when it comes when they start teaching that in school?
I think they're
Man,
trying.
like, why not?
I
I
know.
wonder, one of my friends who's teaching in elementary school sent me a video of they're starting to intro like crypto and coding in school, which I think's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think the coding side is massive push, but on the financial side, just understanding, a checking account, a mortgage, lease versus buy, those basic things, and we see it all the time. You do so well in school and you're educated and you get to a point, and then you're faced with these financial decisions, and there has been no training or education at all.
And it's kind of tough too. Like, I know when we were looking to buy a house, like a lot of the people you talk to with, if you are looking at financial advisors through the banks and stuff, a lot of times it's like, if you don't have a big enough like wallet or pocketbook, then you're not going to get into those like the proper person in front of you, right? A lot of it's, if you don't have this certain amount, we're not going to take you on as a client.
It's a fact. I mean, they're trying to change the landscape on financial advice and trying to make it accessible. I think the most important point is you don't have the right person with the experience to be able to sit down with you and give you the direction early on in your life. It's not so much you don't have enough money, right? So that's in the system, right? And how things are going, because your first contact is a bank teller, and there's amazing bank tellers, there's no question. They're just not at the level of advice where you need to be at, and everything's derived around minimum assets, like you said, in order to sit down and get the right advice. And I think that's a bit of the challenge. So younger kids are looking for the information online, social, the social influence they're getting, Quest Trade, Wealthsimple, all these different platforms. But at the end of the day, no one's really teaching them what they need to do in the decisions and how they should be doing it. And that's making progress, but they're learning the wrong ways, and then they're learning to trade, and it's almost getting treated as gambling now, right?
And not just the everything from finance to fitness to what to eat, everything. The answer is Google it, but then when you Google it, you're getting what they give you. Like you're getting what they want to advertise. So if that's like a 6-week transformation from the garage gym, it's gonna pop up if we had that kind of money to make Google do that. But that's what's happening. That's what these, that's what crypto.com's doing. That's what everybody's doing. They're feeding that information and pushing it in. It's so hard. It's so hard. So let's go back to something a little less serious, because I've been waiting to tell you this story, and it just popped back in my head because you said about school. And I know you'll love this. We got it. Danny had posted some kind of ridiculous thing about they should let kids call kids classes restaurants so they can take their masks off when they're sitting next to each other, right? But anyway, somebody had sent us back something saying that kids are playing tag right now at school with pool noodles so that they can stay 6 feet away from each other.
It's incredible.
Is this amazing?
Wow.
They're playing tag.
I guess they're entrepreneurial, right? To figure out how to do the most basic thing that they love doing it, right?
How fast could that go wrong? You give my two boys a couple of pool noodles, and like your boys when they were young, and tell them
safer though, right?
I won't even let you play because I know you'll hurt the kid. Like you'll get into this game. So isn't this hilarious? So back to like parenting, and like I love talking to you about parenting because you're like whatever it is, 10 or 15 years ahead of me with your two boys and the daughter. We talk about our boys a lot, and like how do you keep that straight? Like the transfer from now till then, and I know like you're still. We experience frustrations with like this PC world, and then we're not teaching maybe our boys to become men, and we're not like enhancing that. We're not like embracing the some of the natural masculinity that comes along with that. How do you manage that like in the years that your boys are going through right now? Like, to keep them on track, to keep them strong, yet sensitive and loving, all those things that we will still want.
I mean, and I love your thing. Don't hear what I'm not saying, right? But I think it's okay to be a man or masculine, right? And we're not talking about chauvinism, we're talking about masculinity, right? And respectful, not demeaning, right? And all those things, and relying on yourself and your own ability. And that can go to very many things, right? I think, what you guys teach in your blast weekends, etc., about self-reliance and awareness, etc. In my world, it's being self-reliant on yourself as well. Yes, we coach people, but we talk to them and make them understand why they're doing what they're doing and why it makes sense down the road. But if we're talking about our children, it's not easy. I mean, there's a very, very big social influence that's challenging what we believe in and what our principles are, let alone just growing up in Canada, being born in Canada, but even what our principles are in being from an ethnic community, right, or ethnic family. So we have different principles that we believe are still prominent today. And respect, look a man in the eye, shake his hand, walk in the room and have confidence, and so when you're constantly getting pulled away from that based on the social pull, and I don't want to go where this is, but it's a constant challenge. So I just stay on top of it, right?
Yeah,
so.
For me, it's like, man, like I'm telling them, I'm giving them some certain lessons, and it's not anything other than kindness and being a leader and making decisions, and like that's something that's innate in us, I believe. Like the want to provide, the want to protect. And it's just so disheartening when then you send them somewhere else and they're getting that, like, that's wrong to be like, that's wrong to stand up for yourself. It's wrong to protect somebody else next to you. You have a daughter too. It's not like you're raising her to be weak by any means. No. But the stronger you raise her, the stronger you raise you're hoping, I would think as a father or daughter, you would want more men raising their men to be good, strong men, right? So that when they meet up, they're stronger people together.
Right. The confidence is both sides, but the way I see things now is it's okay to be a doormat, but not stand up for yourself. And
encourage.
Have self-respect. I teach my kids self-respect first, because come on. And the courage to stand up and just say, hey, I don't want to be controversial here, but I need you to appreciate my position, right? Independent thinking, do your own homework, not rely on the computer programs to let you know what you think you don't know, right? And do your own homework and make your own decisions. But I always talk about, because this world for me is always independence. Oh, you independent. I'm going, in my opinion, it's very hard. We teach them to be independent on a lot of things, but at some point in their life, they need to be interdependent, right? And that's called relying on other people for ultimate success, whatever your definition is. There's a lot of things my wife is much better at than I am, and we respect one another's areas, and collectively we try and do the best way we can to raise our children, right, and make them understand those principles of what's important, just to be a good person in society, right? We talk about all the factors. Each family's got their own things, their own print, but ours are making sure my sons are confident, respectful, rely on themselves, and show kindness, but don't get outworked.
It's like teaching that team mentality within like normal everyday lifestyle, right? Is like having, even in, I think back to like recruit class for fire or something, we had a group of 10 people, and it was, everybody has their different strengths, right? One person might be better in the medical side of things, this person might be better on the fire side of things or technical rescue side of things. And it's like, instead of it being a big competition trying to one up people, is working on each other's strengths and weaknesses together as a group and collectively doing that. And being able to do that in your everyday life or in the classroom with kids is having that direction to work together and use your strengths, or even just like be confident enough to guide the group in a positive way, right? And teach people to not just sit around and wait for something to happen. Like, I think that's a big thing. So many people are taught to be scared to stand up, even to say the right thing, right? It's that bystander effect, where it's like all it takes is that one kind person to say, hey, you do this, let's help the situation. Instead of people are afraid to make mistakes, so they sit back and they're like, well, he's not doing anything, so I'm not going to do anything because I don't want to do the wrong thing. And then all of a sudden, fucking nothing gets done, right? I
mean, there's so many facets we can go with this, but just use failure as itself. Fail as much as you can, as soon as you can. And when you're making the same mistakes twice or three times, that's probably when I'm having a talk with my kids going, hey, something's not working here. Like, but don't be afraid to make a mistake. My gosh, learn from it. I win, I learn. I win, I learn. Right? And that should be the mentality of going forward, right? But there's so many and really it's scary times of the hyper comparison online, and I don't know how many likes I get, or all these kids really base their whole being around, opinions of others. And if we can teach them anything, especially, and it's always a struggle in my house because they always think I'm just nuts, but I'm just trying to remind them that, hey, all those opinions don't matter, right? It's your self-respect in your skin, without the right clothes, the right hair, the right makeup, and just go and get after it, right? Just get after it and make a difference, right? So, but
You played chess with your boys growing up?
yeah, we did. Yeah.
So the other day, Alex messaged me. I posted a picture of me and my boy playing chess. And he's like, "That reminds me of the good old days with old Peter," or something. He said right on the message.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is hilarious. But I think, your boys stand out. When we had Blast Camp, they stood out as like they spoke. Stefan's rather quiet.
Yeah.
Alex was a bigger speaker, but both of them had an air of confidence to them, but not cockiness. And one thing I noticed with them is they didn't leave the tent without everybody else coming with them. That was a real important thing that they both brought to that table, and I think that goes along with it, and the shaking of hands and looking each other in the eye, and I think that's such a lost art.
Yeah.
And I know I moved out of the subdivision, but when I lived in the subdivision, my mom got mad at me. The mom comes up and knocks on the door and asks if I will sponsor their kid for a readathon or some damn thing, right? I never say no to anybody when they ask for sponsorship. I'm like, well, no, this little kid right here, this little boy needs to look me in the eye and ask me for his you're enabling weakness. You're enabling weakness when you are taking that the ability for your child. I know it's not easy for them. My kids are very uncomfortable. They're up here right now. They might, shy away from it, but we come over and say hi to Mr. Dobrich. Mr. Dobrich, dude, what about those days where not everybody's calling everybody by their first name? Crying out loud. Or Mr. Casey, at least a little bit of respect that you're not just the guy that's,
It drives me nuts. You see the guy 6'3", 6'4", and he wet noodles you, right? When he says hello, and I just go, is this happening right now? I'm gonna. Every other guy's inevitable with this guy's size. He should walk in the room and boot the door open, right? And just with presence, and that's the problem, right? There's so many factors. They're just, just the overall presence, it just eludes weakness, and you don't even have to say hello or meet them. You can see it, and their whole makeup, shoulders back, head up, not checking your thing on what's the next thing you do when you walk into a room full of people that you're finding out from whoever's letting you know, right? So anyway, I'm off topic, but those little things you can see, back up straight, and show respect, anyhow, it's
this is where you're best. Off topic is
that's
where you're best.
It comes to it, when you
we love it.
you both, when you play chess with your kid, would you beat him? Would you win, or do you always let them eventually?
No, I don't think so. I think one of the important things of playing that game is to play it out together and kind of talk about the moves, right? Because in the beginning, you just got to learn, right?
Yeah.
And you got to talk about it, and what about here, and have you thought about this, and so on and so forth. So would I let him win? Maybe in the beginning to give a little bit of confidence, but no, the objective is the game is to work through it, and then are you ready? Okay, let's go. Let's get after it, right?
And
I think you do beat them. There's times where maybe I let something slide through, but not very often. The kid beats me now quite often, but it's that even when I do take his his queen or his king and end that game, I am explaining what if you would have done that, or what were you thinking when you did this, just to see where and why would you think not this, or I just didn't see it, or maybe they have an idea. And that's what I think you want, is them just developing, going through that processing of orient, observe, decide, act. We talk all the time about it, the OODA loop, and getting through that and making a decision, and at least they're processing, not guessing. Right? That's one of the beauties of games. I was reading something about soccer's become so popular with kids sports, right? However, soccer, there's very little when kids play, and I don't know much about the adult game, but when kids play, there's very little strategy to it, right? I could go out there probably and coach my kids soccer
fastest kid, whatever,
right? Yeah, just run around.
That's when you just see the mounds of kids
unfortunately
just chasing the ball.
And it's affecting their ability to problem solve, whereas a lot of other sports have a lot more, there's a lot more flow, substitutions, there's a lot more plays and positions, where it's affecting. It's kind of like me. The more that I get into this homeschooling, I'm a homeschool dad now. So now the more I get into this stuff, the more I know about it. The more I'm learning about how teaching works and learning works.
And I think the everything goes back to balance again, right? There's no question. Obviously, certain sports it takes a little bit more time, but each sport has its own methodology or thought process and strategies, etc. When you compare different things, but each one of them has its own, right? There's no question. And what is it doing? At an early age, you just want to teach your kids to be able to process things. Hockey brings another level where you have to process things that much quicker. Like, think of how fast the game is, right? But you want to, regardless, is teach your kids to process, assess, and it's okay to go against the grain. Like, don't be the sheep. Sit back and really assess the situation, because that's a critical thinking, and the world needs thinkers.
Yeah, I don't know if it's schooling, parenting, whatever, but I can tell you, hands down, going in and helping these businesses and like working with a lot of people and just having a lot of general encounters, I guess, there's not adults that are able to critical think. Like, there's just like not going on. It's like react, right? This, make a good decision, make a sound decision, and make a decision, or they always have to ask. That's my pet peeve, and that's more of a relationship thing too than it is manhood. But like, I don't have to ask if we're gonna go out for a drink tonight, or it's like, I might say out of courtesy, like, hey, what do you have going on? But it's not like there's permission, and nor does she expect that of me or me of her, right? It's like, hey, could you mind if could you take the kids, or will you be home for the kids so I could do this? Like, that's relationships. But I hate that, like, with the, like, hey, do you mind if I have a beer? Like, come on, man, just like, dude, make a decision, up a little bit, make a decision.
Times to man up, right? Times have changed, and the process has changed. Like, think about it. I mean, regardless, and don't hear what I'm not saying.
Yeah, that's exactly.
My son didn't. I don't know if they don't have a male teacher until grade 9, maybe grade 10, maybe 8 or something, and that's not a negative thing. It's just there should be balance in everything, right? They should have a balance of a view and a voice from both sides as they're growing up, and that's what I always make sure my kids, grandparents and parents who are stuck busy running around and getting to sports. It's hard to be a parent and give the time, and that's why grandparents come in and fill that void sometimes, right? That generational old school thing of it takes a community to raise a child. Your hockey coach, your soccer coach, your piano teacher, all these people have that influence on that child, and you want to make sure they have balance. And then you, at the end of the day, are the assessment on how you've got to that point. And now we're just sitting back trying to be coaches and, love to be part of their next journey of where they're at when I talk about my kids. So, we're pretty proud of them. And now we just got to, wait for this next stage of their life, right? But that's where it's hard to do it.
Yeah, the importance of a father being present too. Like,
yes.
So like, you want your son to display some of these things and to act a certain way, then you need to be there to make sure it happens. And I think like we've like overplayed how amazing it is to be busy.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I've got this every night of the week, or I'm working, come on, man, like, be there and set the example, because like it's not upon the school to raise. They're there to complement what you're doing, in my opinion, at home. They're not there to raise your children. I think we're putting too much of that on teachers these days to like.
You're right, but 8 hours, 7 hours a day is a long time naturally.
They're with them a lot, for
naturally,
sure.
And there's super teachers, super teachers, right? The point is getting the balance of how you're bringing your child up, and the social pull that you are. Have no choice, but you're going to be challenged with it. It is what it is. The opinion of the people, like the court of opinion, and everyone's opinion on everything versus. And so I find myself trying to create that little filter all the time, and say, hey, you know what, that doesn't make sense, and really take those little examples of where young kids make mistakes and drill it down your kids' throats and showing the example and using examples. And that's one of the biggest things that I would have focused on early on with the telephone when the kids get the cell phones, because disaster starts very quickly and at the times where you don't really understand it, right? So
yeah, man, I've been on some crazy calls with cell phones, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned I don't know when it was, recently, something about measuring backwards, like measuring What do
Oh
you
my
do?
gosh, yeah. It just, we get so focused on the end result, right? Did I get my goal? Oh, I missed 2 spots out of the 10, for example. I didn't get it, and what do we normally do? And you go back and you go back to school, you know, you go back and start again, and mentally you've let yourself down. And what I'm saying is, well, isn't there 8 out of other 10 things that you did really, really good, and continue that momentum, right, into the next stage? So, you know, looking back and not focusing on your to-do list, but your ta-da list,
Yeah.
right? That ta-da.
That's how that came out. That's
right? You know, all the things you've accomplished.
Celebrate the win.
Yeah, man, and keep your mental state, because let's face it, there's a lot of factors that are pulling, especially young boys, young men, on this whole, you know, negative connotations and tough to stay focused and mental illness and all these things. And look what we experienced in the last year here with COVID, etc. Celebrate the successes and work on the extra 2 or 3 things that shouldn't let you down, right? So look backwards and move forward, right? So
it's like personal game film or debrief from a situation, right? Like you go into a game and you might have 10 goals out of it, and the ultimate goal is to win. And yeah, you might get 7 of those 10 checked off, still get a win, but you still have to go back and see where you went wrong to learn from it.
Yeah.
But also be happy. Like there's, you know, a lot of times some teams, all you play is the negative plays, right? In game film on Monday, it's like, all we did was, you know, these were the 10 bad plays we had, so let's just watch those. And it's like, yeah, but let's watch these 6 other plays
Positives.
that were our big plays of the game, because give that pat on the back, because this is what got us those 14 points.
Yeah.
Right? And then celebrating that, you give those instead of that beat down mentality all the time. It's like, okay, fuck, we did that, so let's fix this up. And it's those little wins and celebrating those little wins that push you forward to that next goal.
You know, I still believe in killer instinct, right? I still believe in that. You gotta, but you know, it shouldn't be all or none. It should be a process, right? And that's, if anything, I push with my kids is enjoy the process, right? Because it's the important part. Don't measure everything on that thing, whether I get there. What did you do well to get there, and learn from it, and then, you know, it's like that bird that leaves the nest. It's kind of like, but then when it starts getting the wind underneath, it's ready to go, right? So lead up to that point, and that's your personal responsibility, and collecting all the important influences in your life at the time when you're ready to do it, and make the decision, and don't worry about it. Don't look back, right? Just go, like, you know.
Yeah, let's flip over to, I'm sure we could do 3 podcasts about the Memorial Cup teams, but that was a wild time to be in Windsor. Like, it was just like, it was something of, and, you know, I remember, you know, the Adams Graves, like, times, like, that was also a wild time. It's like a very prideful time to be from Windsor. Everybody's watching the Spitfires, and obviously you were a huge part of that. Like, how long were you the owner in there?
So we bought it in 2006, and then I got out in 2012-13. So after we won back-to-back, that next year I got out. Yeah. So that was, you know, it was a great thing to be part of. I think I alluded in some of your questions, right? I mean, more from to be able to take what was a, you know, average franchise in the league.
There was some rough years between those two.
Yeah.
Great
so,
teams,
and I don't want to talk bad about the previous. I just want to say from when
that's what happens in sports.
We had a raw opportunity, empty shell, that we could collectively, and I mean that collectively, build it into an enviable franchise, like one of the top franchises in the league, if not in Canada. So that was a thing that was of great pride to be part of. You know, one of the greatest things we could do was, I had a skill set. My skill set was the business side. Let's be honest. Warren was coming off of being a NHL scout, right? So his ability to see NHL players, you know, was the quick fix that we can make in those first 2 drafts, right? They were critical for our foundation. And then Bob, coming fresh off of retirement, you know, he was an NHLer and captain for many teams, and he took the role of the coach. And you know what? Honestly, if it was the 3 of us sitting right here, we'd have great battles, great discussions, but we had a high respect for one another's opinion on their areas, and we we're successful by it, right? There were ups and downs, and of course there were challenges, but we never took our eye off the ball, and we knew what we wanted. And we let each person, many times, and you see in businesses, and what I've seen in the past is the businesses is when you had that control freak owner and overlapping in different areas and not bringing the people to make you look better, then it's tough to see the success long term in that business. So it was great to be part of. More importantly, you watch these young players, graduate. If you think about it, we've got to be close to one of the top 2 or 3 teams of NHL are still in the league that we produced out of Spitfire time frame, right? So it was a great thing. And then I think the biggest thing that was gratifying was just to be part of the build of the new arena.
Yeah.
Which
is obviously a huge part of this.
I mean, if you think federally, provincially, and municipally, to bring that type of a spot and to have such a legacy product like that for the young hockey players coming up and the community as a whole, that was pretty gratifying. It was a great thing to be proud of.
End of town.
Yeah,
I mean that is crazy out there.
I always wondered this with like ownership or management with teams like that. Do you sit down, say year 1, and just really say, okay, these next 2 years or 3 years are building, and then year 4? That's when we put all our chips in and go for it? Or are you just gradually, like I see a lot of teams in the NFL or NHL even, and it's just like they always seem to be building and trying to build and build and build, and they almost look like they miss opportunities because they don't just decide to, hey, we're going to get the players we need this year and absolutely go for it.
Yeah, is there like you do in business, like a 10-year, 3-year,
well,
1 year? Like, do
so,
you do like...
So I'll take two.
Obviously, it's
two hats.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because... I built a business model that it would be it's endless, right? It's the fan experience. It's the right format. It's coming in and building an environment that someone would want to be there regardless of what the score is on the board. Right? Look at the Big House in Michigan. Obviously, it's massive, but they've had great teams. They've had not so great team. Guess what? It's railed
Always
all
full.
the time.
Yep.
And we looked at that model, and we look at London Knights as well and what they were doing. They're a different location, but we built the business side around that part. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, on the hockey side, you might have 3 years, maybe even 2, with a player who's really, really good, right? Because they're going to move on. So when we moved into our new rink, that first year, we actually planned for the 4th year. So we did back-to-back. Well, the second cup was the one we were planning for. 4 years, all your players emerge. So that was a surprise for us to be in the position we were on number 3, right? So not an easy answer for you. So you have a shorter period of time. The business model should be built for, generations, right?
Right.
And then teams will come and you build it, and some players turn out, some players don't. But what you want to be able to have is that championship mentality on and off the ice. And when those young kids come to the arena and they see the tradition that's been built about winning and that mentality, that's really what you want to say at the end of the day. Wow, that was really great to be part of, or to at least start that momentum.
Very cool.
And was there a point where you're like, wow, we really have something here? Like, what's that like aha moment where it's like, man, we have like a legit chance?
So twofold, with the kids. When I say the kids, with the kids, they were all like, we went young. We went young the first 2 years, but when they started only losing by 1 goal and literally they're like 16 and 17 years old, and we had a couple other players, but it was only 1 goal, this and that. We were still in the barn, and the fans were they were so passionate behind him because they could see the future of it, right? And then I think moving into the new rink, clearly, like when we had that opening night. And you walked out, I get chills on my arms now thinking about when we walked out and saw that packed arena and just went, wow. And we looked at each other because we were on the bench. I remember we looked at each other, just a big smile, and just say, can you believe it, dude? Like this, we did this. Like it was a great thing to be part of. And, collectively with the city of Windsor, because that wasn't an easy task either, getting that done, because there was a lot of polls as to where we should be at, where we shouldn't be at. But
that was a big fight.
But regardless, the city got behind us. It was a low time in the economy. Remember, it was 08, 09. Markets were down. Everything was down. So the city really embraced the team and we had a great time, being part of it. So.
Awesome. And that always builds for the future, right? Like whenever you have, like, especially in schools, for example, if you have a successful team with a big fan base, people want to go there. People want to play there, right? So it brings in that extra draw to have guys who want to come to Windsor and want to play for that team.
So that was our challenge in the beginning, right? Was just because it was, in the past, they'd have had second, third, fourth rounders not wanting to come to camp because they just didn't want to come to Windsor, right? So that was the first plan of attack, and then obviously bringing in NHLers. And I guess I didn't even recognize, the previous foundation of DJ Smith, right, being there when we first took the team over, and it was a natural for Bob to join the bench and have the success that they had, and DJ went on as well to have great success, on his own. So, and he's, both Bob and DJ are coaching in the NHL now. So we had lots of people that went on for the next stage. Even our, oh my gosh, she's gonna kill me, but I think it's Brooke Pashley is her name, and she went on to be Leaf TV. She started out as announcer, or our national anthem singer, right? So she moved on, and she got a part on Leaf TV with Toronto Maple Leafs. So cool. It was great to be part of all those people moving on and to the highest level in their particular area. So so it was gratifying.
I met DJ just a month ago.
Oh yeah,
at one of the gyms. He's a character.
Oh, yeah.
He was cracking me up.
Good.
Man.
He's good.
He was working his ass off though at all levels. He was soaked in sweat. He was like, whoa. And it was good. It was good. So, last question before you head out. So you're the only dad who's ever called and said, "Hey, I'm sending my kids to blast camp. I'm sending 3 kids. Your nephew too."
Yeah.
What did they say when they got home? That's what I want to know. Did they come? Honestly, how long did they sleep?
Honestly, they were shitting themselves going in. They just didn't know what to expect naturally, right? But I have a picture of them on my phone. I should probably send it to you. And it's the 3 of them arm in arm, big smiles when they walked in the back door. And they said it was one of the best weekends they had. And that was all to you guys on how you framed it, all the important things that you covered, as far as, and I think what the biggest thing was, just making decisions under distress, right? And assessing it and just making the decision and go from there. And all the other areas of bringing a team together and working in that environment. And guess what? It's not always I always talk to the younger kids, it's not always going to be a fastball, right? It's going to be a curveball. It's going to be you might have to beg the pitcher to pitch, right? So in that environment, they loved it, dude. They had a phenomenal weekekend, and thanks to you guys.
They killed it. There was one point though, I go into the tent and we had a tick scare in there. There was ticks, because it was that time of year, and everybody's checking each other's butts for ticks. I'm like, you guys are never gonna be the same relationship.
That was the we made it moment.
Yeah, the other moment I met with your boys.
What have we built here?
They're two big hogs, these two, right?
Yeah, it was funny.
They're like, we had to get these guys over the fence, and I'm like, we made it through the whole weekend. And we're on the last little evolution. We got to do this obstacle course, and they're helping. And there's some guys there that are they were two of the fittest, and there's some guys there very smart. Everybody had their strengths, right?
Yeah.
And these two, obviously, they select them to get everybody else over the fence, and I'm like, don't throw him. I'm thinking they're gonna launch one of these old dudes because your two boys were they went full hockey mode. They were like, whoa, they're screaming, right? And the old guys are running up to the fence, it's Steven Grata.
Yeah.
And they're firing, and I'm like, don't launch them. It was hilarious. Well, yeah, good time in it. I
recommend it for any of these young guys. I think you and I have had a lot of discussion around this. It would be boys camp 2.0 and you figure it out for the age group, but I think every kid should do it.
It's just the importance of it, right? Especially it gets people out of their element, and you can relate it to everything, right? A lot of it is kind of that SWAT mentality, almost military hell week, but it's at the end of the day, it's just creating a high stress environment and having to perform. It's the same as working in the gym and fucking shit goes wrong, and you're like, what are we gonna do to keep people coming in the door the next day? Or I'm sure in any type of business you're gonna hit those roadblocks, whereas it's well, if I can conquer this with no sleep and get through this weekend and do stuff like that, it's all this stuff seems so much more minuscule because I fucking did that.
Yeah.
So this one client who's giving me a hard time, I can probably get through this easier.
Yeah, and the fact that you get 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th place today, and it's like ridiculous. I think one of the best lines was from that Talladega Nights when his dad said, "Ricky, you know, if you're first, if you're second, you're the first loser," right? I mean, it's like so true. It's like not focusing on it, but everyone's gets everything, and like there's no.
Yeah, if you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, if you're not first, you're last, or you're the first loser or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. Anyhow.
Yeah, I know. My kids are all proud of all these like ribbons, these participant ribbons there again, right? And then last year they got their first gold little thing. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. But no, it's awesome. And I guess it just says to you the kind of boys you raise. I remember saying in our final speech to those guys, it was like, man, I want my 2 sons to be just like you guys.
Wow,
And that's like,
appreciate that.
like I don't think there gets any better than that.
Yeah.
That just shows what you've, you know, the kind of boys you raised, the kind of man you are. And you know what? You've been a huge rock for me over the last few years. And I don't know how we went from like, you know, barely knowing each other. I remember calling you say we could meet up in Maria's. And then I feel like I talk to you every week. And you've been a good friend and a mentor to me. So I appreciate that very much.
That's great.
So thanks for coming on the show today. And cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Appreciate you having me. All the best.
Thank you.
Now's the time to do more and be more.